The following program does not necessarily represent the views and opinions of Reality Radio 101, its advertisers and sponsors, or its listening audience. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to the Bear Psychology Radio Show with psychologist, author, and speaker, Dr. Anna Baranowski, where mind, mood, and what matters to you are discussed. We're broadcasting live from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, on Reality Radio 101. Our email address is instudio101@gmail.com.
I have a great topic to cover today. It's a kind of unusual topic because it's really about the psychology of what you put in your mouth and eat, and whether maybe you're eating things that are not good for you, or you're eating in a way that isn't healthy for you. Maybe you're not even aware of the habits that you have with eating, or you're really unhappy with the habits that you have with your eating, and you know very well what they are, but you find yourself struggling with patterns of behavior that have to do with food, and you're trying to figure it out. Well, I think there's a lot of psychology that goes along with this. Obviously, there's a lot of science that goes along with this, but really, there's something that happens with inside of you that can keep old patterns that really don't serve you well today. We have Kim Shapira, who is a dietitian, nutritional therapist, author, and Bachelor of Science in Kinesiology from Tulane University. And she has a master's degree in human metabolism and clinical nutrition from Boston University. So it's a really interesting perspective. And I think it will help people to understand what's going on with their eating habits today, because I think everybody has some problems with this. I'm going to tell you one story that relates to me, and actually might even relate to Kim as well. I have a group of girlfriends who gets together on a pretty much a weekly basis, and we play games together. In this case, we play mahjong, which is comes from it's an old Chinese game, but the problem is that before our game, everybody arrives, we start to talk. There's usually food that's sitting around, and everybody starts to eat. And often the eating can take over the game playing at times. Not always, because we're really good game players. But I've heard people in our group say, maybe we should only put out the fruit, or, no more popcorn, or no more sweets, or something like that, because, it's just there, and we all end up eating more than maybe we thought we were going to. And definitely, there are moments where we all say, like, does this make sense, all this food sitting out here? So leaving that for a later part of our discussion, I want to first start by welcoming you, Kim. Thank you so much for joining us and bringing to our discussion today your wisdom about eating and all things that trigger us around eating.
Wow. Hello. I'm so happy to be here. That was an incredible intro. I feel like you summed up my entire career, and I can't wait till I get into it. That was awesome and impressive. That is, I think, a problem for many people when the food is around and feeling like they are out of control. And I think as you and I both have Maj in common, it also is in book clubs and just casual dinners. I think it's a problem where people do worry a lot about this.
Yeah, it definitely is. And yet, when I was reading through your book, it was so helpful and it had so many really interesting tips and tools and action items and ways to kind of put yourself back on track. And you had these great rules for people to reflect on. So I want to dive into all of that, but I want to start with this quote that you had in your book from Maria Hornbacher, and that is, if this illness, and let's say, overeating or eating when you don't really want to, feels right now like a cage, please try to hear me. It isn't locked. It has been open all along. You are free to go. I loved that quote, and I hadn't come across it before. It's just perfect. So can you tell me a little bit about how you got into, why you chose this particular area of study, what captivated you about it, and what keeps you encouraged in writing about it?
Well, I think it's human nature to pick careers that come from something that triggers us. And so not only is it human nature, it has been studied for a long time that we do pick careers, and spouses actually, or partners, I should say, that do help us master what emotionally triggers us. So I think that's the beginning, right? I got sick when I was 12, and I ended up having multiple reconstructive surgeries and spending a good year at UCLA. And then thereafter, for the next 4 years, going and visiting my doctors back at UCLA. And somebody once said to me, food can make you sick or healthy. And that really stuck with me. And so I knew that I wanted to pick a career to help people be healthy. And I knew that I wasn't, and I wanted to be. So food could make people sick or healthy. And that's how I kind of entered this profession and went to school, learned everything I could about nutrition and dietetics and clinical nutrition and preventing disease and maintaining, disease, and started plugging away and putting people on diets, only to realize the emotional component is more important and definitely surpasses or gets in the way of why people can't necessarily take care of themselves in the long term.
Wow. That is actually exactly what I see in my clinic, because, in my clinic, we deal largely with stress disorders, and even more precisely with post-traumatic stress. So like extreme stressful events, and how these events can have an impact on individual well-being. And I'll tell you, a lot of people that I've worked with have admitted to me that, when they're feeling really stressed, they lean towards eating more than they really want to, and they feel out of control. But I hear it when they describe it to me that it almost sounds like, if they're in a stressful situation and then they eat something, it feels like it's self-soothing, and it just kind of reinforces that pattern of behavior, and getting out of it can become very, very difficult.
Yeah. And I'm not going to say it's easier than they think, but even when we say the word difficult or hard, our mind kind of shuts down for us because we don't want to do hard things, even though we're fully capable. And so in general, we sleepwalk through most of our activities because to be alert and intentional requires, let's say, work, or it's hard or difficult, but it's probably equal to sleepwalking. It's just being intentional in the moment and allowing yourself to stay in some sort of discomfort. And I'm going to air quote discomfort, right? It's not truly discomfort, but because sounds like it will be, our mind just kind of says, no, thank you. I'm more comfortable staying inside the cage.
Yeah. And that does make sense. Like it's a growth opportunity.
It is it is an opportunity, 100%.
Yeah, it's a growth opportunity. But sometimes, when I've, use that term growth opportunity, I can see how people can freeze up right away because
Yeah.
I feel like you're asking a lot, and especially if food has always been a place where we are comforted, and we know that there is
Yeah.
actually um a biology of that.
Yeah.
What happens when we eat carbs, and how that can actually settle down an agitated nervous system. So this eating thing, you shouldn't be confused if you're struggling with your eating, especially if you have a stress disorder, because actually it is true that what you're experiencing is a downgrading of your stress response when you eat carbs.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there has to be a replacement then. Well, if I'm not going to eat the carbs, what am I going to do when I feel that agitation rising? And I know you've got a huge toolkit of
Yeah.
things to address that.
Yeah.
But I want to just remind our fantastic listeners that if you are with us today and you're here for the live show, please let us know. We would love to hear from you. You can contact us at realityradio101@gmail.com and email us and let us know what your thoughts are. If you have experiences with this, if there's a question that you would like to ask Kim Shapira, the author. And, I think that she has put together a book that really answers a lot of questions about changing your relationship with food and giving you a lot of different strategies for doing that. The book is called This Is What You're Really Hungry For. And it looks like it is probably going to meet exactly what people need to hear in terms of better understanding what's going on with them. So maybe you can start by giving us a sense about these rules of yours that you're using that seem to be really making a difference for people who are struggling with their with these habits of eating.
I would love to. If I may, I'd love to also add some context or layer a little bit, because when we're dealing with stress or any sort of emotional trauma or trigger, I would say, our mind tends to find a really nice escape route. And so I just want to backtrack a little and let you know that when I was younger, my mom and I would shop in response to my doctor appointments and my stress. And so I wasn't really understanding that I was creating this shopping addiction. And so we can talk about food, and we will talk about food because that's obviously what I practice in, but I need you to know that my escape was shopping. And so although we're talking about food, I do believe that people escape through all sorts of different things, whether it's alcohol, whether it is food, whether it is shopping, whether it is sex, whether it is cutting. All these different ways to escape really is wanting to not be in the moment they're in, or trusting that they're capable of handling the moment they're in. So what ended up happening is when I started my practice and putting people on diets, people were successfully losing weight, and then they weren't able to maintain the weight loss. And so that is when I started recognizing that I can't be in a career where I'm really failing, right? So getting somebody to lose weight is easy, but the real challenge is actually letting people, helping people find a way to change. So it was sustainable, because if, you look at every single diet out there, they do talk about lose weight, but they never talk about how to keep it off. And ultimately, our only goal should be how to have a normal relationship, mostly with ourselves. And the byproduct of that is a normal weight and better health.
So go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So you seem to be tapping into really this relationship with yourself piece, which really resonates to me when you're saying it, because it's almost exactly the thing that I work with when I'm talking to people about stress and trauma, is that kind of the wisdom of the body guides you towards your own well-being naturally. But it's a really big shift to say,
yes,
really happening with me right now in this moment? Like,
Yes.
am I actually hungry?
Yeah.
Or am I feeling anxious because maybe I'm in a social setting I'm uncomfortable in, or I have something that I have to deal with and I don't feel safe or strong or capable, and I
Yeah.
react.
Yeah.
So in the case with food, they're then eating to
Yeah.
self-soothe and numb out.
Yeah. But even what you're saying could be too advanced for some people. They may not even know how they're feeling or why they're thinking food is a great idea.
Mhm.
And so it's kind of like what you're saying exactly, and understanding that you live inside of your body and that you're communicating with your body all day long. And your body's recognizing stress in less than 10 seconds and triggering a whole bunch of different systems. And your body is communicating with you all day long. And we're all able to recognize when we have to pee and how badly we have to go. And we all have the ability to recognize when our stomach is hungry and when it's not, except if our mind is not inside our bodies. And our mind is worried about the next Maj game and what the food is going to look like, or what I'm having for dinner next Thursday, even though it's Monday. Right.
Mhm.
And so before like you even can get into the rules, you have to make sure you're in your body. And so
How do you do that?
one of
How
my
do you
favorite,
instruct people?
yeah, one of my favorite practices is, well, obviously practicing mindfulness, right? So mindfulness is understanding where your mind is, bringing it back to this moment without judgment. And that is a fully loaded, comment. But one of the tools that I like is just to simply say, what time zone is my mind in? And so even before that, like let's think about it like this. If you and I were just having this conversation and we heard an alarm go off, no matter that we were live on a radio show, we would say, I'll be right back. I need to take care of that alarm, right? That would kind of like make sure that would be the top of the mind. And once we went to the alarm, we turned it off, we scanned our surroundings and we made sure we were safe, then we can come back and finish our conversation. So when we have a thought, food is a good idea, it's actually an alarm. Just like when you have a thought, I have to pee, it's an alarm. And then what you do is you go to the alarm, you turn it off, you scan your bladder, you assess how much time you have before it's a problem, and then you make a plan. So when you have a thought, food is a good idea, it's only an alarm. And what you should do is turn it off, find out what's going on in your body that prompted that alarm. And it could be that you're hungry. It could be that you're stressed. It could be that you're bored. It could be that food is right in front of you. But then kind of going back to your stomach and saying, okay, I see the food, I see the thought, but what am I really feeling? And when you recognize my chest is tight, is that what hunger feels like? My back is hurting or my throat feels locked. Is that hunger? Hunger is isolated to your stomach. It's not painful. It's not scary. It gets worse over time because now you're dealing with survival and you need to make sure that you eat when you're hungry. So it will get stronger. It won't go away. But you have to be aware of like every single time you're having a thought, food is a good idea. Okay, why? Why am I having that thought? I need to check in with my body. So one tool that I like is to say, what time zone is my mind in? Because it should be in the one that you're in. Yeah.
I like the way you phrased it, and I particularly like this idea that there's so many reasons why we can perceive hunger that actually have nothing to do with hunger, and actually almost laying them out so we can do a checklist, Did I just have
Yes.
a bad conversation? Do I have some tightness in my throat? Do I have, a radio show coming up that I want to distract myself from? Am I supposed to pack my car up? Like, what's going on that is creating this feeling like I'm hungry? And is it really hunger? And, like I've got to pee, there's a very specific feeling that goes along with that. And it's hard to misinterpret it. Am I hungry, as you point out, has a lot of triggers that are really nothing to do with actual hunger. So in terms of hunger, and maybe it's a Western civilization, affluence thing where we've got so much food around us so much of the time that we've learned that we can use food as a mechanism of self-soothing in ways that in other cultures or at different times in our historical evolution, we've never been able to.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Think about it. If you're feeling very flighty, very anxious, not grounded at all, and you eat a lot of food, suddenly you feel tired and you want to sit. But what you should notice is that your feet are on the ground. So what I'm saying is if you're very anxious and flighty and you're floating in the air and you just want to feel your body and be in this moment, it's kind of like if you hold a watermelon, suddenly you're not flighty anymore. And that's what eating does, is it grounds you. Mm-hmm. And so your body, like I said, you're in this relationship with your body and it's listening to everything you say. So if you eat when you are not hungry, you are giving it the message, we need this food, store it. And really, we want to learn to be very kind and show our body grace. Like if we undereat, the message is there isn't enough food, store it. And so if we're talking about weight maintenance, which that's the ultimate goal, to maintain your weight at a normal weight that decreases your risk of every single disease, right? And I can't tell you how many people go to doctors and their doctors are like, just lose weight. Yeah, okay.
It's really hard.
That's hard, but really that's easier than maintaining. And it's not as hard as it sounds because you just have to get into the practice, right? I always like to say you have to Karate Kid it. You have to Mr. Miyagi it. You have to wax on, wax off and not really know why. You have to do these 6 rules and just practice them and make them non-negotiables because you never know when they're going to surprise you and show up to be working.
Can we talk about this idea of diets making us gain weight rather than lose weight? Because we were just saying, the doctor's going to say, yeah, well, just lose weight. And, to me, that from all the clients over so many years that I've seen go through this, trying to lose weight has not proven to be an easy thing for most people. Even really disciplined people are struggling with this. What is that about? Why are people gaining weight when they go on to a diet?
Yeah, good question. So, I mean, first of all, there's a difference between willpower and inner power. And willpower is thinking they need something outside of themselves to survive the moment. Inner power is trusting that they have everything they need to survive this moment. And that's kind of like the place I like to help people get to with all these practices. When you lose a pound, you lose it as water, fat, and muscle. Now, muscle is metabolically active, increasing your metabolic rate and keeping you lean. When you lose a pound, you lose water, fat, and muscle. When you gain a pound, you gain it as fat, making you fatter than you were when you first lost that pound. So if you have a history of yo-yo dieting and you've gained and lost 5 pounds, you probably lost 5, gained 7, then went on to lose 7, gained 10, and it continues and you become fatter and it becomes, very uphill battle for you. And so we have to lose the weight the right way, which is not about perfection. It's about you being progressive. It's about recognizing, I want to find joy on this journey. It's a long journey. I want to really keep the weight off. And so the only way to do is to build in a practice of consistency, something I can do forever.
Right. And going back to the idea of emotions, I think this is where, from what I see, seems to be where most people really struggle, emotions and cravings. So what's going on with that?
Yeah. So that's actually rule number 3 is to eat without distractions, which is emotions and cravings. And because the food is in front of us. So the way our rational mind works is we all think food is fuel. Every one of us knows food is fuel. It's nutrition. It has nutrients in it that are fueling for our body that we live in. Our irrational mind says food is entertainment, food is comfort, food is the enemy, food is my best friend, food is joy. anytime we're rationalizing food, we're not okay. And again, recognizing that we're not okay, as you say, is a growth opportunity for us to manage the moment with the proper coping mechanism. So if we can recognize I'm having a thought about food, let me scan my body and I'm seeing that my chest is tight. Now, I wouldn't tell my daughters when my chest is tight, I eat. And so then I have to question why I would, right? And so the reality is, if my chest is tight, that is a growth opportunity for me to take a deep breath, for me to help my nervous system relax in this moment, right? And so figuring out how I can properly handle this moment, not rejecting the moment, not ignoring the moment, but fully accepting the moment so I can continue to be in flow with myself. I'm not going to like all the moments I'm in. I'm not going to like them. And I can't predict the stress that's coming. But I can practice accepting the moment and taking deep breaths.
Yeah, it's so interesting because a lot of the things that you seem to be working with that are helping your clients seem to be very grounded in kind of the strategies that we might use when somebody has a struggle with a stress disorder or just, excessive stress or anxiety. But there's another element of this that I'm wondering about as well. I had an interesting experience lately. I had to do a blood test for something, and it came back where my iron and probably B6 and 12 were low. And I started to take this really great quality iron, B6 and B12 supplements. And I noticed that my desire for food, not that it's gone down, I eat healthy. I tend to eat quite healthy, but I noticed that I had a lot of hunger for a lot of things all throughout the day. And sometimes I would overeat at times because I was just feeling kind of not well. So what happens when actually there is something going on with your body and you are feeling the cravings, but it's actually because there might be something going on that is biological?
Yeah. I would agree that all cravings are biological. They're all chemical. And so, again, anytime you think about food, it's an alarm. And so really making sure that you're checking in with yourself. If you're not feeling well and it's not the food that's making you unwell, then that's a really good time to call the doctor and get a blood test. And generally speaking, we feel a lot of nausea or we're not interested in food when we have some nutrition deficiencies.
Oh, I was very, very interested in food.
And then we also, on the flip side, it's, when you see the side effects of this medication, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, constipation. So basically, I'm going to say the same thing. Anytime that you're not feeling well and it's nausea, constipation, vomit, whatever it is, it's usually either you're having too much or too little. And so it's really figuring out which one it is and not letting too much time go on. Cravings are interesting. People tend to crave, I don't know if you were craving, there is something called pica where people crave, dirt when they're having an iron deficiency.
Exactly. So I was actually not hungry for dirt in any way, shape, or form. But I always noticed that if I ate certain foods, like if I had, a really super fatty salmon steak, I felt so good. It was like, oh yeah, now we're answering the need fully. So, certain things I would really notice met a certain need or something with a lot of salt in it. And I noticed myself eating a lot of salt. I'm just saying, I'm only pointing out to the reality that sometimes something biological is happening and it came as a total surprise to me. And I think maybe for the listeners, that there might be something happening that is creating that sense of an urgency to eat because of the depletion in your body, and to not discount that possibility.
Yeah.
Because I did not see this coming. I wasn't getting a blood test to see if I was iron or B12 deficient. It just happened to be the case. And as soon as I started to take these supplements, it was like, oh my God.
So much better. Yeah. I mean,
So
iron carries
fun.
oxygen, so we need it for almost everything. So yeah, but also people who are craving ice might also need to have their blood test checked to see if they need iron.
That was
But
the other. I was craving ice. Yes.
yeah, that's a
Yeah.
dead giveaway. Yeah.
Okay, so anybody out there who's craving ice, go get a blood test and see if you're iron deficient. Because, like, I had no idea, and I learned about that afterwards as well, and it really surprised me. Let's read some of the emails that are coming in from
Great.
our listeners, Kim.
Great.
This one is from Jane, and she says, "Hello, Dr. Anna. Boy, do I need this topic today after 30 summer picnics. Help." What would you like to say about that?
That sounds like fun. One of the things that I like to remind people is to look up from the picnic table. And, Dr. Anna, I'm looking at you and I'm seeing this like forest and green and beautiful sky, and everything is so beautiful when I'm looking, at you now. And the picnic table, it has food, it smells good, it's delighting all of our senses, but food is not our source of entertainment or joy. And it's really important to look around and look up and see the people that you love and engage with them. And remember that food is only one important thing, and that is to give us fuel for this moment, trusting we're going to eat again in 3 hours. And
you give an incredible example in the book about exactly what you're talking about, relating to if you really loved food, then do this.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that? Because that was just mind-blowing.
Yeah. So again, back to the eating with distractions, people call themselves foodies. And I think the reality is we are all foodies. We all love food. I mean, food is how we survive, right? It's fuels for our body. And I think that people don't really understand that they love food. So we should all love the food that we're eating. But I think that people need to put away all of their distractions and be alone with their food. And it's very interesting. Yesterday, I have this fabulous 80-year-old client who I made him eat a yogurt with me because he eats really quickly. And he tells me that he dreams of food and all he can think about is food. And so I said, go get like your normal size spoon and your yogurt. And he grabbed a big one, but he knew that I was leaning towards a small teaspoon. So he grabbed a big one and then a teaspoon, and he took the teaspoon and he put a heaping amount of yogurt on his spoon. And then he ate it. And then he filled up his spoon before he even swallowed, and he swallowed in less than a second. And then I said, slow down, slow down. Whatever's on your spoon, take half off. Put it in your mouth. Keep the food in your mouth a little longer than you would want to. That makes you a little uncomfortable, because we need to mix the food with our saliva to break down the ingredients in the food so we don't have digestive distress like gas, burping, bloating, constipation, diarrhea, all these things. And so he took half off. He took his spoon, put it in his mouth, and then I made him put his spoon down and sit back. And he had the yogurt in his mouth for probably 5, 6, or 7 seconds. And it slowed down the process. And the reality is that we really need to eat slower because we need that hormone ghrelin to kick in to tell us that we're satisfied. So one thing to do is to be alone with your food. Try enjoying your food. And what you will notice is that your mind is telling you, pick up that fork, load your fork, start the next bite. What's our rush? We don't really love food. The truth is it's really, really boring. It's really boring.
Yeah. So what we really love is we really love to numb ourselves out and just keep shoveling it in when we're really not hungry.
Yeah.
And I really like the description that you had in the book, and how you said basically, oh, so you've got a client and you say, and the client says to you, oh, I really, really love food. That's why I'm eating all this food. And you say, prove it. Go and just do that on your own. Just avoid all distractions. You don't make it into a social thing. You're just sitting there on your own, loving that food and eating it slowly. And it's like, all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, that wasn't as much fun as I thought it was going to be.
Right.
And I just
Right.
love that. It's just brilliant. Yeah. Because
Thank you. It's true.
yeah, yeah. And I mean it was actually really helpful to see how people can, when they're given an opportunity to really look at it through that lens, how it can give them a very new perspective. Here's another one. This one is about this one's from John, and John says, does Kim ever talk about eating disorders such as anorexia?
Yes. So in my mind, anorexia comes from a place of anxiety and pushing a lot of things away, people they love, the food in front of them, feeling like they don't need anything or any help, any love, any food to help themselves or to exist. And so I would use the same 6 rules with anybody with any disordered eating to help them kind of get grounded and back in their own bodies.
So can you go through those 6 rules now so that
Yes,
our listeners
yes.
have a sense of that?
Yes, sorry, we didn't do that.
No, we'll backtrack. It's okay.
Okay, so the first thing is to make sure your mind is in your body so you can focus on what you're feeling. Rule number 1 is to eat when you're hungry and to take your normal portion, to cut it in half and to wait 15 minutes to see if you need more food. Rule number 2 is to eat what you love and to make sure the food loves you back. Rule number 3 is to eat without distractions.
I want to just stop you with that
Okay.
one, because that's like, say it again. Eat what you say it again.
Yeah, eat what you love and make sure the food loves you back.
Okay, let's talk about that for just a second before we go on to the next rule, if you don't mind.
Oh, yeah, we can go to the first one too. I mean, it's heavily layered.
It's really layered. So I learned something about myself this year. I had stopped eating sugar years ago. And then I went on a really beautiful trip to the Amazon in Ecuador. And I was able to go and, stay with this small community in the rainforest. Like, it was just magnificent. And, I was with a group of people, and, as we were coming out of the jungle, we stopped at a shop, and Ecuador has very prized chocolate. So, everybody was eating chocolate, and it was like one little one little small square of chocolate is not going to hurt me. That amount of sugar is not a problem, I tell myself. And everybody's eating this prized chocolate, and I want to have some, so I'm going to have some. But then I had some of that, and then I had more of it. And then as the years went on, I had more and more sugar, until I realized I had created a sugar habit, and it was actually not liking me at all. But I didn't notice it creeping up to the point where it became, say that phrase again. Eat what
You eat what you love, make sure the food loves you back.
And the food had stopped loving me back. As a matter of fact, I was starting to feel really sick from it. But it really came on as a surprise. It's another one of those things. It's like, we just don't pay attention until all of a sudden things change. Because I don't think a little bit of sugar was a problem for me, but boy, did it ever become a problem.
Yeah. Let's do a deep dive in that, because you said a lot of beautiful things. And I want to point out that you not eating sugar, some people might hear that as, well, that's restrictive and I don't ever want to be like that. And the reality is it's when you're saying yes to yourself, there's nothing restrictive about it, right? So when you're eating foods that totally, like, for instance, your sugar for you in that instance is blueberries to me. Blueberries give me diarrhea. And so people might say it's a superfood, it's healthy, and I can't eat it, right? So it doesn't love me back. And so being aware that when you're kind of going through the process of figuring out what foods are agreeing or not agreeing, nobody else has to agree with you. It's no one else's business. You don't have to make it, it's not going to have to be a permanent thing, right? This is temporary because there's some inflammatory issues that you need to work on your gut, and this is your own journey. And so I kind of have done the same process with you as you, where somebody once said to me, I was complaining after having a new baby that I was so tired all the time. And my friend said, oh, it's going to be your chocolate milkshakes that you're having. And I was breastfeeding. I was having crazy, like chocolate cravings and trying to keep weight on while I was breastfeeding. And I was really mad at her when she said it's the chocolate milkshake. And the scientist in me was like, okay, now I have to explore this. And I'm really annoyed by that. And the idea that I wouldn't eat chocolate again felt life-threatening. It felt like I was losing something that I loved. And I thought, what a sad life if I can't ever have it. And that's how I felt. And that's what a craving kind of will bring you to, right? So I always think of sugar even as like a little bit of heroin, because it becomes so addicting that you can't see the difference. Nobody wakes up and says, I want to be in a sugar, I want to eat sugar every single day, right? And so once we recognize the pull that sugar has on us, and we see it as only an addiction, we actually have room to make changes. And so, like you, I didn't have it. Once I realized, oh my God, once I take it out of my body for 4 or 5 days, I no longer care about it. That's shocking. And now I have it sporadically. And because I'm mindful, when I have the thought that I want to have sugar, I recognize it as an alarm. I scan my body and I recognize it's not because I'm hungry. It's because I had it yesterday. And it's in that moment I can say, I don't really feel like having it today, but I know I can have it again tomorrow.
That takes a lot of discipline. Very, very good. My tendency is if I have the sugar today, then I am going to have it tomorrow and the day after and the day after. And that's when it becomes a problem. So
I hear a growth opportunity.
Yes, exactly. No, I've actually stopped eating sugar now because like apparently I have sugar problems. So
most people do, but I think the practice of recognizing when they're having it and they don't have to have it every day is the win.
Well, you're ahead of me on that, Kim, I have to say. I mean, I appreciate that, but I notice the truth about my limited ability once I start down that road. And I have noticed for myself that as long as I don't have the sugar, then I don't want it.
Of course, that's every human, everybody's this way.
Oh, then I really want it. And I lose my ability to be rational about it. So yeah, I don't trust myself so much anymore. The next one is from Walter, who says, I am learning so much today. This is fantastic. I will buy Kim's book. And can we just go back and Kim, can you tell us what the name of the book is and where people can get it easily, and your website as well, so people can find you?
Yes, sure. The name of my book is called This Is What You're Really Hungry For. And it is basically anywhere books are sold: Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Walmart, Target, lots of indie bookstores, pretty much everywhere. You can get it on my website, which is at kimshapiramethod.com. And you can find me on all the socials at Kim Shapira Method.
So I want to say something about Kim Shapira method.com, because you have a few things in your shopping cart that are free and that I think everybody should download if you have any interest in this topic at all, or you know somebody who might be interested in this topic. And that is a couple of free resources that I think are absolutely brilliant and so interesting and well put together. One is your wellness tracker, and it says be hungry when you eat, understand the connection between your mind and body. And then it just gives you this like super simple measure your hunger level. And it's like starving, very hungry, ready for a meal, feeling a bit hungry, thinking about food, satiated, feeling almost full, stuffed, change your clothes kind of full. And 10 is Thanksgiving full. Everybody can relate to Thanksgiving full. We've all sat at a groaning port of food at some point and said, oh my God, what did I just do to myself? I think I'm going to fall over. So, and in this beautiful wellness tracker, you also have this note. Are you present? Yes, kind of, nope. And I think if somebody actually has to circle one of those, it's just this opportunity to say, wait a minute, I am not, am I thinking about hunger when I just had a bad conversation.
Right.
I am not here.
Yeah.
So, I would just say, it's just worth taking a look at. And that's the wellness tracker. And then the other one is the accountability report card. And I wonder if you would just tell us a little bit about what you want to achieve with this accountability report card. Another really great tool.
Yeah. And I think you can use the accountability report card daily or weekly, depending on whatever you're in the mood for. So, what I have found is that if folks follow the 6 rules at 90%, so they're giving themselves an A, they're losing weight between 1 and 3 pounds a week. If they're following at an 80%, they're giving themselves a B, they're losing a half a pound to a pound weekly. If they're following the rules at 70%, they're staying the same weight. If you're getting 60%, you're gaining weight. So it breaks down the 6 rules. It allows you to give a grade and then an average. And so you really can take a look and say, I need to focus more on drinking water. I'm not paying attention to eating if I'm hungry. It shows you where the work needs to be done.
So I interrupted your rules. We got to rule number 2, eat what we love. Can you continue with the next one, please?
Yes. Rule number 3 is to eat without distractions. And as you know, we eat for emotional reasons. We eat because the food is in front of us. We eat for cravings, and we should only be eating because we're hungry. And we should obviously be starting with half. Rule number 4 is 10,000 steps every day, which is really important to help us maintain our weight. And ultimately, remember, that's our goal, is to maintain our weight. And rule number 5 is, what is it? Oh my gosh, I totally can't remember.
8
cups of water.
Because I've got the cheat sheet in front of me. Like, I feel like an expert now.
I have it in my head too. It's so funny. I was reading my Audible, my book, and I had to go back and fix some of my mistakes. And I must have been talking so fast. I'm like, rule number 8. And I was like, wait a minute, I only have 6 rules. Anyway, rule number 5, drink 8 cups of water. Rule number 6, 7 hours of sleep, which is essential for weight maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I'm happy to do a deep dive in any of them.
Well, I think they're all, it's just that there's such great forms for people to use to help themselves.
Yeah.
Let's look a little bit more at some of the other comments that we're getting. Oh, you'll love this. This is from Carol. She says, Kim is a genius. I have never, ever heard any weight loss advice like this. What is her website? Thank you. Well, do you want to say your website again?
Yes. Thank you, Carol. That's so sweet. My website is kimshapiramethod.com.
Beautiful. And then here's another one from Jamie, who says, great show. What is a very safe weight loss for a person who is 100 pounds overweight? Can you speak about that?
Yeah. So honestly, a safe weight loss is between 6 and 10 pounds a month, and not really trying to strive for more. When we have more weight to lose, it's easier to lose more in the beginning, but we really don't want to rush it. So what you will see is maybe you might lose 3 pounds a week, which puts you closer to the 12 pounds. And that's okay. It'll catch up to the 8 pounds. It'll kind of slow down. So you might see that you're losing 3 pounds a week pretty regularly if you're following the rules at 90%. And maybe by week 4 or 5, you might start losing 2.5 pounds. And that might stay around for a while. And then it might drop to 2 pounds regularly, and then 1 pound. But anytime that you lose a half a pound or 1 pound, or you stay the same weight, those are wins. So people could go away and they could have 30 picnics in a summer and they stayed the same weight. That's a win all over the place, right? So it's not just about losing weight. It's about learning how to maintain your weight. And so if you're doing that, you're winning. Nice.
Yeah. In your book, you write about John, who's 40 and his dad is an alcoholic. I've, worked with a lot of people who grew up in homes where there have been problems with addictions, whatever that might be, or childhood emotional neglect, which is very common in families where there's addictions. And then you described John as a binge eater since he was 10 years old. How did you help John understand the connection between his youth and his eating?
Yeah, well, interesting. Alcoholism and binge eating disorder are actually the same disorder. And so recognizing just that and accepting that, right? And so I would again do the exact same thing with a binge eater, an anorexic, or somebody who just wants to lose 10 pounds and they say they have a normal relationship with food. It's all going to just come down to how healthy is the relationship you have with yourself. And there is a quote that I have in that book that I love. It's from Perks of Being a Wallflower that says, we accept the love we think we deserve. And again, I'm not using this as like an outside of yourself kind of quote. This is, what am I willing to endure? And when am I willing to accept love? And can I treat myself like the most important person in my life?
Right. That is a very, very kind of big win capacity to be able to show up for yourself in a really daily way with love and care and compassion. And it's one of those wins that when people actually achieve that, it's just life changing.
Yes.
And, and not just in terms of the eating, but in terms of the trauma work that I do, when people are able to actually show up for themselves in a very compassionate way, it's a game changer without any doubt at all.
Yeah.
You wrote about the spokes on a wellness wheel as a way of checking in, and that's something we haven't had a chance to speak about yet. And I'm very interested in your description of it.
Yeah. So the title of the book, This Is What You're Really Hungry For. And I think the answer, I mean, it's funny when I do ask people, what are you hungry for? And they think donuts, cake. And I come back to, no, you're hungry for peace. You're hungry for being well. And that's it. It's just that simple. You want to have peace around your well-being. And that's what we're all hungry for. And so when you think in terms of being well, it means that I'm connected to the things that are important to me and I'm moving forward in them. Because if we are, let's say we didn't sleep well, then I'm thinking all day today how tired I am. And maybe I'm making irrational choices and having, extra coffee, and I'm not choosing water, or I'm not thinking clearly, and I am choosing different types of food that I would normally eat. Right. So being well means accepting I'm tired and not trying to do anything about it, but really working on my sleep schedule and making sure I'm consistent. So it's checking in with the things that are important. And so these things are, our well-being, which is how well are we moving, sleeping, eating, our adventure. Am I doing things that I'm looking forward to? Your spirituality. What am I connected to? What's important to me? Am I finding time to do things that are helping fill up my tank, so to speak? Financial. Am I stressed about money? Am I taking care of myself in this moment financially, right? My relationships, my career. So these are the things that are very important to make a person well and to stay connected to them. What I found to be true is that people fail at being well when there's two things that happen. One, they think they already know what they need to do. And two, they neglect what they need to do. And so having a curious mind and being open to, I don't have to know how this is going to go. I don't have to even know what I'm going to eat. I just know that I'm going to be curious to see what my body feels like and curious what I need. And it could be that my only options in this moment are chips or chicken fingers. And that is okay. It's not the last time I'm going to eat. And at least I'm getting something, right? Like I don't need to worry about it. And I don't have to act like I already know how this is going to go. I have to be in this moment to figure that out.
Mm-hmm. Nice. I'm wondering if there are any particular foods that you would recommend or suggest to either eat more of or avoid? And I'm not talking about restrictions, but when somebody is struggling with stress, are there ways that a person can reinforce health
Yeah.
with the things that they eat?
Of course, but it's going to come down to giving them permission first to eat what they love, because we are talking about restriction. People have been restricting themselves or eating celery because their neighbor ate it and felt great, and the neighbor never told them about the diarrhea they were having, right? So it's first coming down to what foods do you love? But in a stress response, food is not what you need. And it doesn't matter if it is full of vitamins and minerals or it is not. What you need is to be practicing breathing and only eating when you're physically hungry. So if you are somebody who walks into the kitchen or pantry for every emotion, I call those like little fishing trips or walk-bys. When you are somebody who does these fishing trips, then it's not finding an alternative food that is a healthier version, because when you eat when you're not hungry, that gets stored as fat. And our body's natural response when we're stressed is not to eat. In fact, there are 1,400 different sensations that make it harder to eat. And all our neurotransmitters and digestive enzymes are not where they should be, because they're now trying to help you survive the lion that has come into the room. So again, taking deep breaths. And then what I would recommend is putting a very pretty pitcher of water, really beautiful, something that you love looking at on the counter, with a beautiful glass, something that you love looking at, because that'll change your somatic energy right away. And when you walk into the kitchen, you create a new habit of pouring yourself some water and taking some deep breaths, and even changing the way you walk into the kitchen, right? Using a different foot, using a different door if possible. But change your routine, wake up your mind so you can create new ways of dealing.
This is so much about changing how we're interacting with the world around us, rather than just what we put in our mouths. And I think it probably opens the door for people to look at how they're approaching food and maybe free them up a little bit from the habits and patterns that might have been creating a lot of rigidity around, or behaviors that really weren't working. Here's another one. This is from Steve, who says, "Hi to Kim. Is it okay to have a cheat day on any diet?"
Hi, Steve. No, the answer is no. So diet actually means lifestyle. It means the way that we eat. So we all have a diet, and I would love your perspective to be that I'm a normal eater. I eat when I'm hungry. I stop when I'm satisfied. I trust that I can have more food. So if you're referring to cheat day so you can have more food, I don't really think it's necessary to have more food, because your body doesn't need it. What your body needs is for you to be in it and paying attention to what is appropriate in this exact moment. When I say eat what you love, I literally mean eat whatever you love. So there really isn't a need for cheating, because you can have it any day of the week. So I would wonder if Steve is referring to cakes, cookies, carbohydrates. I'm not even sure what he's referring to, but I really love the idea of people thinking of food, and we can even call wine food at this point, thinking of ice cream, lasagna, pasta, pizza, fish, every food as a banana. And the reason why I want you to think of it as a banana is because if somebody just randomly hands you a banana, you're first thinking, why did they hand me a banana? And am I hungry for this banana? And we need to be hungry when we eat. And we feel no guilt or shame putting a banana on a counter and saying, I'll come back to you later, right? We feel pretty good about that. And so I think if we start thinking of all food as a banana, we'll eat it when we're hungry. We'll eat only as much as we need now, and we'll trust we can come back and have more.
Right. But the same scenario, what if somebody hands you a piece of cake? It's hard to put that cake down on the counter and say, I'll come back to you later.
Yeah, but where you are right now looks so beautiful and I am admiring it. And I feel like I would love to be where you are right now, right? But I'm not. And so it's the same with cake. I could totally accept that I love cake and not need it right now. And that's the adventure piece. I know that I will get to a cabin on a lake and I can plan that now that I know that that's an important thing to me. When somebody hands you a cake, first of all, it wasn't your idea. Somebody just handed it to you. You weren't hungry for it, and you should put it on hold until you are. But normal eating is sometimes having a bite of cake and putting it down, knowing that you can come back to it.
I love that part of it. Hey, this is not going to be the last piece of cake that you're going to have. And just that feeling of, oh, that gives me a lot of freedom that I don't need this right now and I don't have to have it completely. Kim, we're totally out of time. This, I have to say, has been an absolute delight. Is there anything that you would like to say to close? Any last words that you'd like to say to our wonderful listeners?
I just said, first of all, thank you for having me. It was so much fun. And to everyone listening, you have the ability to do this. So just keep going, take a deep breath and don't give up.
Thank you so much for joining us, Kim. For those people who are interested, this is What You're Really Hungry For, 6 Simple Rules to Transform Your Relationship with Food to Become Your Healthiest Self by Kim Shapira. It was a absolutely delightful conversation, Kim. Be well. And bye, everyone. Be well.
Be well.
Thank you for listening to the Bear Psychology Radio Show with your host, Dr. Anna Baranowski, right here on Reality Radio 101.